So, trucks. Inflammable material. Alright, let's talk about trucks and why there is a shortage across the road of truck drivers. I think I've always wanted to just drive a truck. Why? For the simple reason that it just looks like a lot of fun. But like everything else, when it becomes your job, it is no longer fun. And I think this is where the problem is. And there are a lot of trucks, what's it called? Toy trucks that a lot of people have. So, and when people have that, when I mean a lot of people, you buy the truck for your child, and then people buy trucks like they buy, they would buy maybe a tractor, all these toys for their children, and the child would love it and just play with the trucks because it's just so much fun. But then they end up, this is another truck, inflammable. So anyway, most of the trucks coming out of here are coming from the petrol diesel storage. So that's what you see here. Always shiny. So the question is, why is it that there is a shortage of truck drivers? And one of the interesting things, it says that the average age for your normal truck driver is 46 years old. I'm thinking 46, that is a lot. That means if you enter the job at, say, I don't know how much, maybe 22, you would have at least more than 20 years as a truck driver, even before you so it means you've got maybe another 20 years more. So there would be a lot of people with a lot of years of experience, and you would think that being so much fun and a lot of trucks, it's going to be a lot more easier for people to this is an it looks like an American truck, but anyway, so the driver waiting probably for his turn to go into the storage, carry some petrol, and then just move on. So let's get back to that. So the idea that most people, when they start, it is so what's the word, these are, how many liters do these have? They're about, I don't know, 18, this is 18,000 liters, and then the other one, it doesn't, 13,000, and then this one is 35. Oh, this one is big, 35,000. Okay, that's a truck moving. All right, so back to the story. So a lot of the people, when they come here, so some of the truck drivers there, so you've got a food stand, and some of the truck drivers would come and whilst waiting for their turn to probably drive off, or they come here, have their food, got some chicken there and whatever it is, and it's just the way people have to eat, you know, they work hard. So the shortage, get back to the story. So it says that if you started and the average age is like 46, so it means they're not getting younger people to get into truck driving, and that is rather a shame. And when you see that, it says another thing is that a lot of the people nearing their retirement age are not, well, they're older basically, and they're not being replaced. It's another angle to check out trucks. I wonder if the seat here are meant for truck drivers. I don't think so, but if you like truck, what's it called, watching trucks, it might be a good place to come. You've got the shade of the trees, and then you can just sit here and watch them roll by. It's funny that actually that there seems to be a lot of fun watching people work. So you're sitting here having a drink and just having a good time whilst others driving around. And the funny thing about driving is that it no matter how cool it is, no matter how cool the car is, if it becomes your job, it just stops being cool. It's just no longer fun. It's just the way things are. Anyway, back to the story. A lot of the drivers are now older, and most of them probably started this when they were younger, and once upon a time apparently it was very lucrative, and because of the shortage, and they could command higher prices. But as time went by, it just became a bit more difficult. This is a nice truck as well, and I like this one with a bull rodeo. Nice design on that truck. Cool. So a lot of the older truck drivers are now retiring, and because of that, they're not getting younger people to join the trucking business. And I just wonder why. Because I think one of my take would be, first of all, getting into it. The license, even if you have a car license, you need a specialized license to drive one of these, because thank goodness too, I wouldn't want any old person driving a truck like this, because when things go wrong, it can be spectacular. And it is also different from driving these are flammable, you know, don't smoke, don't do all these other things. So if this goes wrong, you put it in the wrong hands, it can be. I've seen videos on YouTube of it's quite impressive actually, walking between all these trucks. You just feel like you're going through a tunnel. So I think probably that is one of those things. And it says another challenge that most of these face is the long hours that most people, after you've been away for a long time and doing this, it can get to you. And apparently one of the problems that most people face, especially if you're the US, for example, they have the country is big. If you've ever driven from, say, Florida to, you cross the state north, I don't know if it's Georgia, and then you go to somewhere like Kentucky and all these other places, it is just endless. And another thing is it's just so endless that people are like, oh, you cross another state, that means you don't do your 9 to 5, even if there are laws that says you can't drive or be on the road for more than so many hours, and after that you need to rest. And so I think the long hours is a valid point, that you can't really just let me go into the shade because it's hot. So you can't really just do your 9 to 5, go back home to your family, wife, or your PlayStation, whichever one you have, because I would take it that not everyone is married. So trucks rolling down the motorway. So another thing is that it says, first of all, they're not well paid, and that's another thing. So that's what also discourages people. If you work in long hours and then the pay isn't great, so how do you convince more people to join? So that's another thing. And then they said being away from home for extended period of time. And I think that being away from home can be another big problem, because think about it. For example, in the European Union, before the whole European Union, a lot of the trucks will get stuck at the borders, and not even only in the European Union. Maybe, I don't know, in America you're just interstate, but a lot of trucks are always stuck at the borders, and they're there for days waiting for clearance. And guess what? Then you need to eat, and then women come to offer them, a bit of relief. And then, so basically, you get back home, you might get a disease, you might get robbed, and then your wife found out you've been unfaithful and all that stuff. It means you're basically, it ruins your life and your marriage. So that is not good. And then it says the regulation to get your license as well, what's it called? This CDL, the commercial driver's license, can also mean, oh, I like this one. It looks retro, Freightliner. It looks skinny from the side. Yeah. Nice truck. So, getting your license means sometimes it's just so hard that you just can't be bothered. A lot of people can't be bothered to go through the training. So that's another thing. So the more, basically, the entry, I would understand why you would want to make it very hard, not hard, but it's got to be rigorous for people, because these are, I know they're trucks, but they can be dangerous. So I would understand that if you don't have people properly trained, even with all the trainings they have, you still get a lot of problems. So I would say, yeah, I don't know how they can get, maybe it's paid, I don't know, but anyway, so let's see how that. So you have that, and then this says there is a lot of issues with after the pandemic. Well, before the pandemic or during the pandemic, a lot of people were purchasing online, and the supply chain was broken because stay at home and all these other things to protect people, and of course it has impact on the supply chain. And because of that, I don't know, it probably just meant people couldn't get work because there was just not a lot of things or commerce going around. Anyway, with all that stuff happening, it became very difficult for people in the industry to make ends meet. So everything was delayed basically. So those who retired, if you retired during that period and then not being replaced, it means it's going to create a shortage of people. And then something I saw online is that if you're a driver for other companies, they were paying them really low wages, and people who could afford it would buy their own rig or their own semi, and then they would do the transportation themselves, and it was a bit easier. But then other things started happening, that it used to be good money, but then other unscrupulous people started coming in and then lowballing, basically charging far less for something that should be a bit that basically competition was coming in, and it wasn't good for the business. It means those, if you used to charge maybe 1,000, 2,000 for a load and so many distance, now someone is saying 800, 900, it means you're in the business of losing money, and because of that, that is not good. So some people just said, well, it's not worth it. And then it started to happen that a lot of drivers used to work for a company, and then they started job hopping. Why wouldn't you job hop? If you're not well paid and someone's willing to pay you more, why not? So that's another thing. And in some cases, people are saying, look, some companies are saying, come work for us, we even pay for your license. So the commercial driver's license, that's a car coming, and that seems like a Nami. Nice car. Nami box. Looks like an electric car. I don't know if it is. So another thing, I don't know how true this is that when a lot of the people, being a truck driver apparently doesn't have a good reputation. I think a lot of manual jobs do not have a good reputation, and because of that, nice electric motorized bike, put it that way. Anyway, so it doesn't have a good reputation. It means a lot of people just thought, oh, you're a truck driver, is that it, you see? And so it just meant that those who were in it making money, newer people getting it, were struggling, and sometimes they just leave they go and do something else. So then you have a lack of parking, and this has been mentioned a lot of times, where you need to park and you don't have parking space. And for example, here you have all the trucks parked here and they're waiting, and apparently they're fortunate to have a parking space because the refinery, not the storage, is just next door. But in some cases you're not that fortunate, and then you have another problem, is that whilst you're waiting, apparently you're not paid. And I think that's not fair. It's not my fault if I have to wait 3-4 hours to be able to carry the load and deliver it. So I should be paid for that. But apparently in most cases they're not paid to park and wait. But it's just similar to when I think fast food or some factories started to say, when you clock in after you've changed. So you have a uniform, you get to work, you go to the changing room, maybe change for about 15 minutes, and then you go and clock in. And people say that's not fair, because uniform is part of the job of what you do, if it's protective clothing, whatever. So you should come into the office, you clock in, and then you go and change, and then you come out on the other side, do your job, come out, change, and then clock out. But anyway, the point here is that a lot of people were not getting paid, so it caused a shortage of drivers coming into, or people willing to put up with that. If you have, let's see, if you have a lot of years in it, sort of sunken cost fallacy, or you've just done it for so many years, and you're part of the few who entered when it was good, then that's fine. But the newer ones are no longer willing to put up with that, or they can't even afford to put up with it. So it becomes a very difficult problem. So I can understand now that they're complaining about shortage, but I could see why you would have that, because it's not an easy job. And that is one of those things that you need to deal with. Anyway, there are in the US, apparently there are about 80,000, or if not more, shortage of drivers that people are seeing now. And you're thinking, well, worldwide is even worse. And in some countries, I knew someone who was a driver, I think from West Africa, and he said the job is so hard that in some cases some of the drivers were attacked on the way. And you're thinking, wow. He said, armed robbers would just, try to steal whatever you have, or if you have money, or the goods you're carrying from one set. And then if you survive that, then maybe you can, then you need to deal with police asking you, maybe did you know the driver, were you involved with it, how come they knew you were going to go through this road, and all that stuff. So being a lorry driver is not an easy job, and because of the pay and the conditions, a lot of younger ones are no longer willing to put up with that, or going into a different field. And because of that, there is shortage. So how do you fix that? I don't know. Pay people more, maybe. Give them better working conditions. That should fix a lot.